forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. This is called Scrappy Squares. It's 12-inch finished, but I'm going to show you how you can make virtually any size block you want. There's no diagram, but this is what the block looks like. There's actually 4 6-inch finished blocks, and here's what they look like block to block. I think this would be a really great scrap quilt in a larger quilt. This is a 2x2 grid, so the units in each grid space will finish at 6 inches for our 12-inch block. I've put here how much fabric you need for one block, and also for 60 by 84 quilt, which is 35 blocks set 5 across and 7 down. And this is what you'll need. In a nutshell, what you do is take a large square and cut it in half once on the diagonal, so you'll get 2 patches, we'll call them. Then we'll take a strip, this strip here, one of these, and sew it on one side of the triangle, press the seams, and then sew the triangle to the other side of that strip. And then you get this. You'll have to trim it down. Here's one I've already done, and here's the back. And I have another one that's smaller, but I'll show you in just a minute how you can take any size square and figure out how much you need for those units. So here are the 4 different units I'm going to do for this demo block. I have my square cut in half on the diagonals. We have 2 triangles. This started off as a 6.5-inch square. And this is 1.5 inches by about 11 inches. And if some of them were a little bit longer, I just cut off whatever was on the strip. And so here are the 4 different ones, and they're all pieced the same way. So we'll start with this one. And you just take one of the triangles, and you're sewing on the bias here, so if you like to starch, this is a good place to starch, because it'll help when you're piecing so you won't stretch it a little bit. Then you're just going to lay this piece on top like this and stitch 1/4 inch. And you'll press it. And I found it's easier for me to press toward this. Instead of pressing open, I press towards this strip. And here's what it looks like pressed. I press toward the strip. Then you take your second half and you match the edges here. And then I just kind of look and make sure that these are the same size. I don't fold it in half or anything. I just want to make sure that there's about the same fabric on both of these 2 sides. And then stitch another 1/4 inch and press this towards the strip. And here's what the unit looks like. Here's the back. And it's perfectly fine to press open if you like. I just found this a little bit faster and easier. So before we trim this, I wanted to show you, if you want to make different sizes, here's one I made that finishes at 12 inches, and that's the one I'm demoing now. And here's one that finishes probably about 10 inches, a little bit more. I started off with a 6-inch square and cut that in half. I made this strip too short, so I had to really trim this down more, and I'll show you why that happens. If I put my ruler on here, and this is a 6.5-inch ruler, and that's what I want to trim it down to. Before, when I made the smaller one, I didn't make this strip long enough, and it kind of cut off right about here. So it made the square smaller. I couldn't use everything. I had to trim it all off. So be sure you make this long enough to be able to trim. This is probably too long, but I'd rather make it a little bit too long and be able to keep the square. So when you trim this, I just look at my diagonal line and I try to center it on this strip so you can see it from this corner to this corner, and then make sure that you have enough to trim off, and then trim off all the sides. Turn this around. If you have one of those rotating cutting mats, it works really well for this. And so there is our 6.5-inch cut unit, and we'll make 4 of these with all these are the other 3 we'll make for the block. But before we go on to that, if you have a square of any size, so let's say you wanted to use different size squares, and this is a 4.5 inch square, and if I fold it on the diagonal like this, you can put it on your mat, or I'll just use this ruler, and I measure. It's about 6.5 inches as it is now, but I want to make it longer because remember I told you about cutting off these corners. So you want to make sure it's long. I would probably make this 8 inches, maybe 8.5 inches, the strip. And for this smaller square, you might want to cut the strip at 1.25 inches or maybe 1 inch. So you'll have a smaller piece here in the middle. And then the other one would be, if this is a 10-inch square, layer cake. So you fold this on the diagonal and measure it, and it's way longer. So this one measures about 14 inches, and you'll probably want to add another couple of inches. So maybe 16 inches, just to make sure you have enough. And this one, you probably want to do your 1.5 inch cut strip, or maybe even a 2-inch cut strip and make it a little bit bigger. So any size square you have, you can do this with. I've got all my units done, and you just lay them out how you want to. And let's see. So that looks good. So you'll sew these two together and these two, and then press those seams, and then sew your rows together. When you sew these together and you're trying to match these strips down the middle, you want to stack these seams right here, like this. Stack them right on top of each other. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you can try to match them up as best you can. Here's what they would look like block to block. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.